And it says we're live. Let's just verify that fact. Let's just verify. Got something? Do I have audio? Something? Sounds like I have audio. I think I do. Look at that. I already got a thumbs down, man. This is awesome. This is great. This is great. So it is the time of year now where everyone wants to call each other pagans for celebrating Christmas or putting up lights or whatever. So we're going to take a look at Colossians 2. But first of all, I wanted to send an article from my hometown here. Bethesda Hospital is officially closed, and same with the homeless shelter. So I just want to point out that in the midst of this dreadful pandemic, that's a worldwide thing, and the hospitals being overstressed and staffed, and the bodies stacking up like cordwood. They're actually closing down. This is the second hospital to close down in my area. Doesn't really make sense, does it? Because they're not making any money from elective surgeries and normal things that they do, because it's all closed down for COVID. So, and it's like, how is that even possible when they give you, like, the government gives you a check for 30 grand just for diagnosing someone with COVID, and the hospitals are closing down? Just going to point that out there. And then, we can talk about that later. Just waiting for people to kind of filter in. And then we're going to talk about Colossians 2 when we talk about let no man give you any crap about Sabbath days and what you're going to eat, what your diet is going to be like or anything like that. And we're going to read through most of it. It's pretty quick. Isaiah Ryder, finally, I get a notification for a live stream. Hey, all right. How about that? How's it going, Chase? Well, we got 8 people here. Somebody already hates me. Wonderful day on YouTube. I've got the blue man thing going because I've got 2 white screens in an almost dark room. So I can be blue for today. So today we're going to take a look at Colossians. We're going to look at this is Paul speaking to them at Laodicea, or Colossia, but talking about the Laodiceans and whatnot, and that everyone is quick to be the holier than thou man and pointing fingers as, you can't do this or that or the other thing anymore. And because we're in the Christmas season, the Seventh-day Adventists have their thing, and a lot of groups have their own things out there, what they want to believe about things. And I want to take a look at what the Bible says. Actually, some people, Christians really don't have a true holiday. We have, of course, Christmas and Easter, but those have been paganized. They kind of just took the dates and then they say, this is what we have our pagan celebration, and we'll just say Jesus on those days. And that's fine, whatever. But that isn't where the origins of, the festivities of like Easter with the rabbits and the hunting and the eggs, and putting up lights and Christmas trees and all this stuff for Christmas. There's nothing to do with Jesus, but that's fine. We don't have any holidays otherwise, because nobody knows when this stuff exactly took place. So, so it says in the Bible, you can't have a Christmas tree. And it's like, well, we got to go back to dispensationalism now, don't we? Where does it say that? In like Jeremiah or something to the Jews? And it also says in there that don't worry about the guy with the Christmas tree, even in the Old Testament. So, we'll take a look. We'll take a look here. Isaiah Ryder, can I talk about Romans 7 and people saying uses Cicero's fourth maximum or whatever to prove sinless perfectionism? Isaiah, you got to get off that sinless perfection stuff. It's nuts. We can take a look at it, Romans 7, because I don't know even what you're referring to. I have not heard of it. I've heard of the Romans 11 or Romans 12, where they're talking about following the orders and the statutes of the government and how you're not supposed to overthrow them because the government's put in place by God. So that's usually what we run into when we're talking about Romans, where people have a problem with stuff. And people also have a problem with, like, I think in there is where it mainly talks about calling it. You have to call out for the Lord to be saved and all this, and the Romans road, and primarily dealing with that. But I haven't heard about the sinless perfectionism when it comes to that. Today, we're going to talk about Christmas and Sabbath days and all of that. So, yeah, generally, it's just the Hebrew roots people that don't understand rightly dividing. Well, sure, Chase Stern. There's, here's the thing where I'm at, and this is where I've kind of grown. Some people would even call it ecumenicalism. Oh, Max is becoming ecumenical, right? I've decided that, with the current things there's a grand deception that's played off over people right now, that there's nothing you can do to snap them out of it. They got to wake up themselves, and they got to search for their own truth, right? They got to figure out what's going on. And that's what's going on now. So arguing over these different cult ideologies and different cult things, it's like you can point out where they're wrong, but calling people lost and this and that is kind of like, well, if their practices aren't hurting anybody, and maybe it's even some benefit to the people participating in it, if it doesn't interfere with somebody's salvation, then I'm kind of like, whatever, just let them do what they want. I'm not like Seventh-day Adventism is a great thing. It's like they want to hold to their Saturdays. It's not going to get them out of heaven. They're not trusting in their works for salvation. They're trusting in their works for obedience and rewards and things like that. And, it's like, well, that's pretty harmless, and sometimes it does people good to be forced to do things like that, where it forces them to take time out of their lives and worship God. And it forces them to be together with their families, and it forces them to do that. And that's, some of those things that the cults are into are not that bad. Of course, there's always variations on that, where there are some SDA guys that are real big into, well, you're not being a good Christian unless you're a vegetarian or vegan or something, right? You've got the extreme ends of that, and you've got that amongst Protestant groups and things too. And that's where you can kind of call it out. But for the most part, it's like, if it's not hurting anybody and people like it, just let them do it. And that's what Colossians 2 here is talking about, because a lot of these ordinances are gone. All the ordinances are gone, where you don't have the Pharisee out there to point at you and say, well, I'm the better man because I don't work on Saturday, and I'm the better man because of this, and you're a bad man because you're doing these things. And it's like you can't really play that game anymore unless you're talking about something moral. When you're talking about statutes, you're not talking about morality. You're talking about just some rule somebody put up. A perfect example was in the 10 Commandments. It says you're supposed to worship on the Sabbath. Well, that's an arbitrary rule that is between God and the Jews for that time period that did go away with the New Testament. So as an example, is it wrong if you want to celebrate the Saturday Sabbath? No, do what you want. No problems there at all. Isaiah says if people don't wake up to the government lies this year, I don't know what to say. Yeah, I've already given up. I've been saying the same thing since March, right? So I don't know. Granted, I don't come into contact with a tremendous amount of people. It's people that watch, my YouTube and stuff like that. And a lot of people disagree with me. A lot of people disagree with me back in March. A lot of people disagree with my opinions about how things like the flu manifest themselves in people. And a lot of people will disagree with me on that stuff. And that's fine. I think that there's a spiritual element and a spiritual aspect to this, though, that is sort of like God says, if you want to be a baby all your life and have people tell you what to do, then I'm going to let you. And wherever that road leads you, it's your own fault. That's what I think is going on right now. Because even mainstream news is saying that, the test vaccine is hurting people, and the mainstream media says nobody is dying. So I don't know. That's the whole deal, Jennifer Petty, I got slack from other Christians because I celebrated Halloween by handing out gospel tracts and candy to kids. Yeah, and that's nonsense. That's you can very easily use Colossians 2 for that. Halloween, the thing is that, yeah, the Christmas goes back to the festival of lights, I think it's called, and it's called something else in Germany. Um, and then you've got, Easter is Ishtar, which is the fertility goddess, and like nobody is worshiping those things, right? I mean, Christmas, we had a town manger scene, whatever it's called, nativity thing, right? People, these are Christians going to celebrate Jesus, right? So what? So it's Halloween. Everyone wants to dress up. It's fun for kids to dress up and go knock on doors and beg for candy. Nobody is worshiping anything in there. That's not to say that other groups and their little societies, it's not a special day for those guys, but average people, it's handing out candy and dressing up in costumes. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that is what it is. So Colossians 2, I'll just start at the beginning. For I would that you know what great conflict I have for you and for them at Laodicea, as for many and for as many have not seen my face in the flesh, that their hearts might be comforted, knitting together in love, and unto riches of the full assurance of understanding, to the acknowledgement of the mystery of God and of the Father and of Christ. Now, I've done some, speaking about the Trinity here, primarily, when it's come to like Owen Benjamin and his followers and ideas of doesn't want to deal with the Trinity and kind of badmouths it as, only one God and Jesus was just a dude sort of a thing. But you have this here where Paul is saying the mystery of God, comma, and of the Father, comma, and of Christ. What does all that mean then? If Christ is just a dude? You see what I mean? Is like the novices, they'll take the one piece of scripture and not understand it. And like, this is what the scripture says. Well, yeah, but look at the rest of the Bible, just inserting that in there here. In whom are hid all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. All wisdom and knowledge comes from God. All of it. And this I say, lest any man should beguile you with enticing words or trick you. For though I be absent in the flesh, yet I am with you in spirit, joying and beholding your order and the steadfastness of your faith in Christ. As ye have therefore received Jesus Christ the Lord, so walk ye in him, rooted and built up in him, and established in the faith as ye have been taught, abounding therein with thanksgiving. Beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, which is what's going on right now with the old COVIDs. All right. I would say a great many deal other things. We're not going to get into. After the tradition of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Christ. For in him dwell. This is sort of an anti-pharisaical thing where they're like, the people that are trying to place rules on you, saying that you're not saved unless you do X, Y, Z, sort of a deal. Celebrate this. Don't work on the Sabbath. You eat, can't eat pork, something like that. For in him dwelleth the fullness of the Godhead bodily. Again, here we have, if Jesus Christ is just a dude, you have Paul saying, in him dwelleth the fullness of the Godhead bodily. And you are complete in him, which is the head of all principality and power, in whom also ye are circumcised with the circumcision made without hands, in putting off the body of sins of the flesh by the circumcision of Christ. So we have our spiritual circumcision, buried with him in baptism, wherein also ye are risen with him through the faith and operation of God, who hath raised him from the dead. And you, being dead in your sins and the uncircumcision of your flesh, hath he quickened together with him, having forgiven you all your trespasses. And now this is a very interesting passage that I just understood as I briefly went through Colossians 2 here before coming on, is that for anybody who doesn't know, like the birth certificates and that every country has, your certificate of birth and how the government interacts with you and how corporations interact with you is they create a fake person that is a corporation, which is a dead entity, right? So it's interesting that a lot of these ideas, they go right back to the Bible. All of the workings of commerce go right back to the Bible. And there's even this sort of a metaphor here with when obviously he's talking about a spiritual deadness, not knowing Christ. But it is also that if you're really in the world, you're just this corporate entity, and there is no spiritual thing. It's all corporate. It's all money and commerce and currency, and all of the terms that are used going back to the Bible are actually like shipping type terms. Like if you're really bad in debt, you're underwater, that sort of a thing. So yeah, being dead in your sins and as a corporation, and in the uncircumcision of your flesh, he hath quickened together with him, having forgiven you all trespasses, blotting out the handwriting of ordinances that was against us, which was contrary to us, and took that out of the way, nailing it to the cross. Now, what ordinances are we talking about here? Now, let's see. We're talking to the Colossians, right? So these are like mostly Gentiles. Obviously, in the early church, we're going to have the Jews getting it going there, but the handwriting of ordinances are going to be your Old Testament stuff. Don't do this, don't do that. And this is like ordinances. These aren't more moral things. These are worship on Saturday because I said so. That's not a moral thing. Don't steal from your neighbor is a moral thing, right? Those laws are written on your heart. These are the ones that aren't written on your heart, right? These would be like speed limit laws if they weren't posted, right? No one would know what the speed limit is, right? And he's saying that all of them ones you don't need to worry about it. Like the was a big one. Passover festivals, the Feast of Trumpets, and all these different practices that the Jews have a holiday for just about every day. It's amazing when you look at their calendar. Blotting out handwriting of ordinances that was against us, which was contrary to us, meaning working against us, showing us that we can't keep the law, right? And took that out of the way, nailing it to his cross. And I'll also say about this, about people want to call us like easy believers, right? Oh, you're just, you can do whatever you want because Jesus paid it all. And it's like, well, right, because God's great and God's powerful. However, if you're going into doing something is wrong, and you know that you're going to heaven anyway because God's got your back, that would be taking God's name in vain, right? So that is not what we do. We try to do the right thing and try to be moral and try to do the good thing so that we get God's blessing. That's the way that we go about doing things. I don't think that God really cares what day I choose to worship, when I choose to worship. Maybe. I don't see why Saturday is any better than any other day. Sure. Blotting out the handwriting of ordinances against us, nailing it to the cross, verse 15, and having spoiled principalities and powers, he made a show of them openly, triumphing over them in it. Let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink or in respect of any holy day or of a new moon or of the Sabbath days. So anytime any Hebrew rooter out there says you shouldn't go to church on Sunday because that's the mark of the beast, or you shouldn't have a Christmas tree, or you shouldn't celebrate Christmas, or you shouldn't celebrate Halloween, or whatever, Bible already talks about it and says don't worry about it. Okay? And it says let no man judge you. Okay? Which is exactly what people do. Now, at the same token, you don't go around judging other people. If they want to have a Christmas tree, who cares? Like I said, in the Old Testament, it talks very specifically, exactly, and perfectly about a Christmas tree in somebody's house. And it says, don't worry about it because the tree can't hurt you. It's, people want to worship nonsense. Then none of that stuff exists. They want to worship whatever, saint whoever in the Catholic Church. It doesn't matter because it's fake. And it says here, which are the shadow of things to come, but the body is of Christ. It's a shadow of things to come. So Some people say this is going to be the old feasts and all these things are going to be taking place in the millennium. I don't know. They kind of serve their purpose. I'm thinking more like there's signs and things that are coming, signs and wonders for the future, talking about end times, which is the shadow of things to come. Um, that's the way that I would see that there. Let no man beguile you of your reward, involuntary humility, and the worshiping of angels. Ooh, that's a contested one. I looked this one up about how it appears to be, it's okay to worship angels. And there's some hotly contested debate and sides of issues on this. And I'm just going to leave it alone because I don't believe that it means that you're supposed to worship angels, because we only got like one that's mentioned in the Bible. We got Michael, the archangel. I mean, is Gabriel actually in there, or is he a Catholic edition? I don't know. Anyways, intruding into those things which he has not seen, vainly puffed up in his fleshly mind. So a person who is lost, who is really big into, a lot of people, they just go to church because they want to be in the Christian club and call themselves a Christian, and they're not Christian. And these people will want to tell you, oh, you shouldn't do that. That's not Christian. That's not Christian. That's not Christian. Meanwhile, they're listening to the football game, when they're in church, or they don't really care, It's saying, don't worry about them guys. And not holding the head, from which all the body and the joints and the bands having nourishment ministered and knit together increases with the increase of God. So they're not being led by anything. They don't have a head. They don't have a leader. Their leader is whatever the TV tells them. Right now it's COVID and doctors and experts and Trump, Orange Man. Everyone's life depends on Orange Man. Wherefore, if you be dead in Christ from the rudiments of the world, why, as though living in the world, are you subject to ordinances? Touch not, taste not, handle not, which are all to perish with the using, after the commandments and the doctrines of men. Which things have indeed a show of wisdom in will worship and humility, and neglecting the body, not in any honor to the satisfying of the flesh. So it's kind of saying, yeah, you can kind of do what you want. You can worship in your own way. You can take part in holidays. You can take part in whatever you want. I mean, doing some of the Jewish stuff, sure, if you want to do that. I mean, the Jewish ones, the thing is about, even though a lot of them have already been completed, the different feast days and things, at least they know when they are. You can look at a Jewish calendar, and the day that they have listed as the Feast of Trumpets or whatever they've got is the actual day that goes all the way back to when they wrote it down and when the commandment was issued to them. So at least that's the day, if that's important to you, right? Whereas the Roman Catholic calendar and stuff, they just kind of put days whenever they want it. They even moved Easter because it was too close to Passover one year. And we'll take a look at chat quick. Something about Nimrod on Christmas. Christmas is goes back to sun worship, because the right around there you've got the winter solstice or the winter whatever, where you have the longest day of the year, and somewhere around there it switches over to where the sun starts coming back in the days. You have more light, so you got more and more and more and more darkness all the way until around the 21st of December. And then the days start getting lighter and lighter and lighter around that 25th part. So yeah, that's what that's about. Not a huge deal. And I'm sure it goes back to some goddess and whatever, but Charles Lawson is a fraud. I don't know too much about him. Isaiah says, Jeremy Carter says the devil isn't the enemy of God, but rather man is. And Satan is just another dog in the race because God is in control. More or less. Yeah, it's not, well, people will say the devil made me do this, the devil made me do, no, it's people. The devil just made it easy. The devil might reward you for your wickedness, but yeah, God's always got the thing. It's kind of like you look at the book of Job, it's like there's some tests out there and some trials and tribulations. And most of the time when people are like, oh, woe is me, why is this so bad? And why is this happening to me? You can make a direct correlation to things than choices that they made in their life, right? Job is in there because Job didn't, I mean, it's been a while since I've read Job, but the general idea of Job is that Job didn't really do anything to warrant the kind of punishment that he was being given. It was more just a demonstration of faith. Now, granted, there's probably some things if you pick it apart in there that Job was messing up on, but you know, nobody's perfect. I just mean like a lot of people want to blame God for everything. And it's like, really? Is it God's fault that, millions of babies are murdered every year through abortion? That's not God's fault. That's people. That's people doing it. Um, yeah, everybody's quick to place the blame on God. People are pretty quick to place blame on Satan, and it's like, no, it's people. Um, it's people, and in order to even be good, you need example of wickedness, I guess. You need to understand what wickedness is. Isaiah, as the true devils can only torment you when they come in the form of other people. Jeremy says they don't just randomly attack people. Well, I don't know about randomly, and I don't know what Jeremy says on that. There's certainly evil spirits that can influence you when you're weak, especially if people are like on drugs all the time and they're not getting a good diet and they're not based and they're not foundational. They'll have problems. I mean, it's hard to know though. I mean, you can't see evil spirits, but certainly people, especially when they're on drugs, don't act like themselves like they normally would. Nephilim giant hybrids aren't real. Jeremy Carter, no, he believes in all that, I think. Jennifer says he was influenced by Brian. Yeah, he was part of the Brian Denlinger camp, but he's out of that now. He doesn't believe any of that stuff anymore. Jennifer Petty, if you're talking about Jeremy Carter, no, he believes pretty close to what I do. Except I don't think he buys off on the Trinity or whatever, but he does not believe in any works anywhere for salvation in the Bible at all, which is your standard. I'd like to say standard Christian thing, but I guess now it's a standard fundamentalist Baptist thing. I mean, I don't know who still holds to that, but because you have the Ruckman crowd out there who calls themselves fundamentalist Baptists, and they're way off on that, right? Yeah. So you're going to say something about Romans 7. I don't know if has anyone actually had any problems with this Christmas stuff? You were mentioning about Halloween, and Halloween is kind of one of those ones where it's like, well, that's an easy one. I mean, it's like, I don't know. Halloween is there is something to be said that Halloween is a bigger celebration and it makes everybody more money than Christmas does, which seems kind of odd, but it does. So it's a very important holiday for the business world. And they'll do everything to make sure everybody loves Halloween, right? So, all right, Romans 7, something about works, perfect work stuff. I see marriage stuff. Isaiah, you got to tell me what verse you're talking about. They love to call us all Baptists. Well, yeah, here's the thing. I don't know if people out there are aware that out of the group of Christian peoples, and this is everybody that just calls themselves Christian. So this would include Catholics. They now call themselves, before they called themselves Catholic, but now they're like, okay, we'll call ourselves Christian. Everybody else calls them Christian. Um, Once upon a time, a whole bunch of people in the Catholic Church, they call the Reformation and all this stuff, and Martin Luther and all of that, decided that it's not biblical to call a guy father and the head of the church God on earth, who can make up biblical doctrine as he pleases because he says so. And Catholic tradition says that anything the Pope says is as though God said it. So that overwrites all scriptures, all traditions, all whatever. Okay. Luther had a problem with that. And a lot of other people did too. And you have all these splinter groups. You have the Lutherans, you have the Pentecostals, you have all these groups. Really, they come out of the Catholic Church. So all of the things that people think are Christian, the way that Christians do things, a lot of the different traditions, they just are all Catholic. They're Catholic traditions that the Protestants took with them. They just don't want to call anybody daddy. All right. That's really is what it is. And the only group that was not part of that was the Baptists. They had their own thing. So your fundamentalist Christianity is only going to be Baptists. That's it. And then out of the Baptists, you have guys like the Millerites, and that became like the Seventh-day Adventist, and they have some wings out there to themselves. And then you have full-on cults that are like the Mormons, where they're like, hey, this is a pretty good book, and I'm going to say I talked to an angel, and I'm just going to rewrite it. I'm going to cross out the things that I don't want to teach and say I'm a man of God, and that's your Mormonism. And then you've got Jehovah's Witnesses, which I'm not as keen on their stuff, but it's very similar to that, where you've got a guy who just wanted to take out the stuff he didn't like, say everything was a bad translation and my translation is better, and create his own church. And that's how that is. But yeah, that's why the Roman Catholic Church is called the Mother Church, because all of these different Protestant denominations all started from the Roman Catholic Church. All right. Romans uses past tense. Hey, Critical Mass, how you doing? All denominations are rogue Catholics except Baptists. Yeah, all the ones that are called Christian denominations that are like Lutheran, Pentecostal. There's a million of them. There's something like 20. The last time I looked, there was like 24,000 different denominations. So yeah. And then of course now the Baptists, they have Independent Fundamental Baptists, the Southern Baptists, they have all sorts of different stuff. And their name is all over the place too. So you never really know what you're going to get. I mean, if someone says they're a Bible believer, then, odds are they're a King James onlyist fundamentalist if they call themselves a Bible believer. But if you're going to go to a church, right? If you're going to go to a church and you want something that's close to something that I would talk about, or like Ed's going to talk about, or be very grounded in what the word says, you're going to go to a Baptist church, because there isn't any other option, right? There isn't any. Muslims technically a Catholic subdivision or fraction. Muslims would be more almost Jewish than Catholic. They have all their like Muslims in their Sharia law. They have all of the the little Jewish type laws that are just, there's nothing moral about them. They're just their laws, and all of the moral laws they get from the sort of the 10 Commandments. They have all the same. I mean, everyone's kind of got the same moral laws because they all come from God. But they're more similar to like an Orthodox Jew. You know, how you have to pray 3 times a day or 5 times a day or whatever it is. Every time you say Muhammad, you got to say peace be upon him. You know, they don't believe that Jesus is the Messiah. He was just a dude. So they're closer to Judaism than anything else. Married to Eve, saying Eve brought sin in them. Yeah, well, you're talking about the whole back in the Garden of Eden with the sin thing. You know, everyone's kind of got their ideas on that, and that's how it is. I don't know Isaiah, I don't know what you're talking about with in Romans 7. I see some ordinances on marriage. Commandments here, and talking about the law, which, you know, Romans, they like their law talking in Romans. So you'd have to tell me what verse you're actually even talking about. And critical mass, I don't know if you saw it, but I have, you know, amidst our worldwide pandemic, where the bodies are stacked up like cordwood and there's not enough beds for anyone, right? My own Bethesda hospital has to close because there's not enough patients. There's 2 of them in here in St. Paul, Minneapolis, which is like the hotbed, right? Minneapolis and St. Paul are the full-on Agenda 21 areas where we have BLM and all this stuff and all of the big protests and, you know, the Democratic National Convention, the Republican conventions and all this stuff. This is supposed to be where people are stacked like cordwood, and we're closing hospitals because they ain't got no money. So yeah, that's what's going on. And they want to test everybody at certain hospitals that are plugged into Agenda 21. They want to test people like 3 times a day so they can get their little grubby hands on some money from the government. But even amidst just giving somebody a COVID diagnosis, getting 30 grand, they still can't stay in business. Imagine that. It's almost as though this thing isn't real. It's almost like it isn't real, and they're just making it up. I don't know, man. I don't know. Bethesda was a good hospital. I was the IT guy for the Physicians Clinic there. Very good. I mean, they had a lot of weird stuff there, though. It was a hospital that had some peculiar mental health stuff there, which seems, again, odd that they would close down Bethesda because it's a mental health type deal. But yeah, and then they're saying, you know, how bad COVID is, and they have to shut the hospital down. Then they have St. Joseph's is also kind of sort of right next there. That's the other main St. Paul hospital. And they're looking at like shutting down half of that too. Financial losses unsustainable, according to Fairview CEO. The financial losses amidst a global pandemic are unsustainable when the government's giving out free money. Totally, just no strings attached money. Just label it COVID, label it COVID, label it COVID. They don't have enough patience to even fake it. They have to close their doors. So, you know, that's what was going on with that. Before I got into talking about Colossians 2. And yeah, you know, Isaiah, with the work salvation stuff, I mean, I don't even know why don't you just not watch those videos? What are you trying to prove to yourself? Go out and be a moral person and spend that time, rather than obsessing about this stuff. Go pick up a guitar, learn an instrument, or do something that's useful and beneficial for everybody. Critical Mass says, I think there is a virus going around. We've had different strains of COVID before, but not as many people are dying from it as they report. Well, I personally don't believe anybody is. I actually just saw a thing from a doctor who said they'd never seen anyone die from the flu. Whether or not you want to believe that, but it really resonated with me when I heard them say that, because the way that I believe in my research that what those symptoms and things are related to flu, what they are, they're not like an outside force. I mean, they can be if you're contaminated of somehow by an outside force. But flus, from what I've come to understand through different research, is that there actually is your body creates the stuff that they call as the flu. It creates it as a response to either detoxification or from some sort of outside stimulus, like you get heavy metal poisoning or something like that, will give you flu-like symptoms. I think it's just a natural immune response because there's no bacteria, there's no life. If there's no life there, how can it mutate? How can it change? How can it do anything? Right. So that's my understanding. And as far as the flu goes, the flu cases are down to 0 this year because they're labeling it. Well, no, I mean, because COVID ate the normal flu. So we don't get the normal flu anymore. Only old people on sabotage life support are dying. Well, yeah, the people that they're the thing about that too is that if you're an elderly person and you get COVID, you're actually going to live longer, according to the statistics. The average age for an old person to die is 77. Okay, amongst everybody, the average age is 77 years old. After that, you're on borrowed time. Well, the people who have died with COVID are 84. So if you've got COVID, you're going to live another 10 years. Okay. At least that's how I read it. But you know, I'm an idiot who cracks jokes at things. It's a serious business, man. It's serious business. I mean, people got to realize, you know, that old people die. Okay. This whole reason that, you know, people are like Christians and stuff is, where are you going to go when you die? What's God all about? You don't need to be worried about it. A lot of people look at it as like a good thing. Get out of here. Right. Old people die. They get sick and they die. Just, you know, and the doctors, they're not helping. Right. You need more mercury and aluminum medication, Mabel. That'll save you. And you can't eat eggs anymore. One of the superfoods that you can't eat eggs, and you can't have salt. You know, the omega-3s and salt, the things that you need to live. Can't have those anymore. Or any green leafy vegetables. Like, you look at the diet restrictions of some of these guys, and that's so their petrochemical pharmacy drugs or whatever will work better. It's like, oh, give me a break. I don't know. I mean, everyone wants to be told what to do, and no one wants to take any responsibility for their own health or for whatever's going on in their life. And you know, that's what happens to them. I don't have any sympathy at all. If you're going to listen to some doctor tells you to do something stupid, then what am I going to do? I mean, I'm going to say, you know, you might want to get a second opinion or look into that a little bit. Nah. Critical Mass says nothing like a government-controlled expert health advice. Well, yeah, the resident expert that we have in America is Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci did his doctoral thesis on the Spanish flu. Okay, so this is a guy who knows all about it. And Dr. Fauci's thesis says that the conclusion from all of the data shows that not that many people died from the Spanish flu. They all died from wearing masks and bacterial pneumonia. So there's our number one resident health expert about this whole COVID thing saying, all the Spanish flu people, they all died of bacterial pneumonia from wearing masks. Don't forget to put your mask on as you walk to the podium before you take your mask off. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, the old COVID thing is going to be going on because people are pretty happy with it. I'm guessing. I mean, nobody's really making that big of a fuss. Everybody who does gets immediately banned from YouTube and other places, and everyone's going over to BitChute for the most part. BitChute, because of their uptick in traffic, have actually fixed their servers a bit, where it no longer takes me 8 hours to upload an hour-long video. So I might upload to there, might not. I'm amazed that my stuff hasn't been kicked off yet, but yeah, everybody is getting the boot from old YouTube. I don't know. Mass will grow bacteria, creates an environment bacteria thrive in. Yeah. Took you 2 weeks to get a vid up on BitChute. Yeah, I know. And the worst part about that is, the worst part about the BitChute is not the uploading the video. I'm fine with it taking a day to upload a video, because it uploads at such a slow rate that I can still surf the web, watch YouTube videos, or play a video game or whatever. And it doesn't affect my service at all. Like with YouTube, you hit that button to upload and you're doing nothing. You're not doing anything until it's done. So I'm fine with the slow upload to BitChute. The problem is that when the video gets there, you have to attach a picture to the video. And if it doesn't like the picture that you selected, it will be stuck in processing forever and ever and ever. And the only thing you can do is re-upload the video. You can't switch the picture. It's stuck. So then you have to go through the whole process again. And if you have, I've done it where I've uploaded 4 or 5 times with 4 or 5 different photos before I finally got it to go. And it's like, if I do a video every other day on multiple channels or something, that's way too much to deal with. So, I don't know. I might be actually like busy to where I can't even do videos in the future, but YouTube, I guess, as long as they're going to let me sit here, although I'm not very happy about them owning my content and being able to put ads up on it if they feel like it. So, it is what it is. I guess it's a privilege for me to be able to use their service. Right. So that's how it is. I'll use it while it's here. Yeah. Isaiah about the Pope. Is the Pope the man in charge? No, he's the figurehead in charge. All those people you get high up, they all have power, but everybody's got a boss. Everybody's got a boss. The only person without a boss is God. Everybody's got a boss. No matter how far up you go, up into any corporation, even people who would consider themselves self-employed have bosses, right? They have to report to the IRS. Okay. They have to be accountable to their customers. Everybody's got boss. But the higher up you go, you do have more power, right? And more autonomy. Who is the Pope's boss? Probably the Black Pope. But now they're both Jesuits, so it really doesn't matter. I don't know. I don't really care. The Pope is just a guy, the figurehead, to dress up in his little nightgown and be a pimp. That's all the Pope is there for. Figurehead. He's someone to be mad at. That's really about it. Satan's one of them. I mean, there's the ideas where you get in the end times about the Pope does wear a hat that says, "I am Christ on earth. I am him. I am ruling and reigning in the place." It's I forget the exact words of it, but it effectively means the Pope rules and reigns in the place of Christ until Christ returns, with all the power and all the authority of Christ in matters of doctrine. So he wears a little hat that says, "I am Christ on earth," right? And he is the figurehead. Now, he's just a dude, a Jesuit dude, and probably likes him young. And so, yeah, I don't believe that. And one of the things is, like, if you're a Catholic, you have to believe that to be Catholic. There isn't any, in the Catholic Church, the reason they call themselves Catholic is because they have rules. And if you don't follow the rules, you're excommunicated. And the Pope cannot take away your spiritual salvation. He says he has the power to forgive sin. but they can't really take your salvation away. So what they do is they kick you out of the church. And then they say, well, if you're not part of the Catholic Church, then you can't go to heaven. That's how they do all this stuff. It's this big scam. All right. So you got Daddy Pope up there who says, I'm God on earth. I mean, if you're a Catholic, you're supposed to believe that. And if you don't believe that, you're not a Catholic. You might like going to your big building and singing in the choir, but you don't stop calling yourself Catholic, because you're not. Just saying, that's an excommunicatable offense if you don't believe that the Pope is God on earth. All right. And there are some people who, people who comment on my channel and one of my videos, and I asked them, I'm like, I'm not going to get into a big debate, but do you believe the Pope is God on earth? And they're like, no, he's just a man. But in articles, when he's actually speaking doctrine, then he is speaking as though he is encompassing Jesus Christ. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, okay, so you believe that Jesus Christ embodies the Pope whenever he speaks about doctrine. And I'm like, okay, I don't even have time for that. I don't have time to deal with that kind of nonsense. All right. Where Christ is going to possess the Pope when the Pope talks about doctrine. No, not gonna do that. But I would like to point out, as far as that goes, with the hat. Okay. And he sits on a chair that's an upside down cross, guys. Okay. He speaks praises to Lucifer on Easter. He sits in a chair with an upside down cross. He has an emaciated dead Jesus on the end of his staff. And I got my dead Jesus staff, right? Everything about him says Antichrist. He speaks in a big building room that looks like a serpent's head with eyes, and he's sitting on the tongue where the podium is, right? Wears a hat that says, I am Christ on earth. And you guys want to be a part of that, then be a part of it. Okay. But don't have anything to say about me, doctrine or anything wise, because whew. And if you don't believe that stuff, then you're not a Catholic. Okay. And you're just not. And a lot of people aren't, I mean, that's the thing is it's like hard to be mad at Catholics because a lot of people don't know any better because no one looks into any of this stuff. Anyways, I'd like to point out with the hat thing and the title thing, God on earth, the Pope rescinded that title very recently in the last couple of months, where they were doing the calendar yearbook for the Pope and all the people that work at the Vatican. The Pope rescinded his title of God on earth, or placeholder waiting for Christ to return. Why would he do that? It could be here because he cannot claim that title because the real Christ on earth is coming. And we all know who that is. Mr. Antichrist is here now, so the Pope can't use the title. The Pope was just the placeholder. Now we got the real guy here. And the way that things are going, with the old pandemic and the New World Order, Agenda 21 stuff, I'm like, seems like about the right time. People always ask me about, when the rapture is and is gonna take place, or different events in your blood moon thing and all of these things. And it's like, I was always like, things can get a lot worse yet before we're looking at the 7-year tribulation. It's like, you got the bare bones of the New World Order system set up, and you can see it in different areas. But it hasn't really quite started coming together until right now, where it's very obvious that people are just too stupid to take any sort of volition over their own lives, and will just listen to what their squawking talk box tells them to do on television, and what their neighbors tell them to do, and what their family tells them to do, and what the government tells them to do. And then at the end of the day, right, if something bad happens to them, then it's not their fault. I was just following what so-and-so said. The Pope said I'd be okay. The government said I'd be okay. My doctor told me to take the vaccine. Nothing is anybody's fault. And that's the way that people want to live. So, hey, go do it. And then don't cry to me or want handouts from me because you hurt yourself. I mean, come on. So yeah, I think we are at that time now. We're entering into the precursor to the 7 years and all of that stuff. So it ain't going to be long now. And you've all it is those people that are there that can be saved before we enter into that trial period is all that really needs to happen. And the next big thing is the rapture. So, you know, go out there and get saving people. So interesting times. Oh boy, we're talking about flat Earth. I don't think you want to get into that. I don't want to be here all night, guys. I don't want to be here all night. Let me just say that the more you understand your surroundings and the more that you accept it, the more laughable and idiotic the entire idea of living on a spinning ball, zooming through space at 600,000 miles a second, rotating and spinning at 1,000 miles an hour at the equator, tilted at a 66.6 degree angle and zipping around that sun at 66,000 miles per hour. And all of our stars are exactly in the same spot every day and have been for thousands of years. And all of this stuff, it makes you laugh and makes you wonder how stupid you were and how susceptible you are to mind control and susceptible you are to being tricked. Hey, look, guys, I don't know if you guys know this out here, because apparently the general population in America does not understand that people lie. Government is not your friend. Yeah. You know, I mean, take that of what you will, but don't just, accept some guy's shooting you up with something because he's wearing a white lab coat. Don't accept what Dr. Fauci says just because he has doctor in front of his name. Don't trust anything the government wants to do to you, especially if it's for free. Okay? Yeah. I'll cover that up. Oh, we're talking about moon landing too, huh? Origins of the globe Earth, Isaiah. The origins of the globe Earth goes to the Roman Catholic Church, a Jesuit. Before that, nobody had heard about it. Catholics create NASA. Yes and no. Yes and no. I mean, the Jesuits kind of moved into America when around the Kennedy era, probably even a little bit before that, but the Jesuits had control over everyone because it was all of those high-ranking people in the Nazi movement, they're all Roman Catholic, and the church funneled them into Argentina, brought the people over here to the United States. That's all the Jesuits and all the Roman Catholics. Yeah. They aren't the Bible is the reason why it cannot be anybody other than Roman Catholicism when it talks about the beast system and the church of the beast system and the whore riding the beast and all that. The reason it can't be any other church other than Roman Catholicism is because Vatican City and the Vatican and the Catholicism is both a religious entity and it is a political entity as its own country. And that is one of the specifiers of what it needs to be. Now, I don't know of any particular country that like Islam would be based out of, and Islam doesn't have any of the other markers of the New World Order religion. The biggest religion right now in the world is Catholicism. They have all the markers of being, the beast system with the false prophet set up. They're the mother church. They're in purple and scarlet. They are both a political entity as well as a religious entity. So that is Satan's church. Yeah. That's how it is. Random guy says, I don't know how the book of Jasher, Judas, Enoch, and Thomas related to the King James Bible. Well, they weren't canon probably because they couldn't be verified, is what it is. Or they weren't seen as having enough to do with, like, the book of Enoch, I think is knowingly, there's some additions in there and some sort of fantasy, like somebody got a hold of it. And the other ones, I don't think that they were considered scripture enough. Like they had enough dealings with God. They weren't really, it was like somebody's journal and stuff. And been a long time since I've read that that stuff, but I don't think that the non-inclusion of them really makes a difference. Um, the Book of Enoch has some wild stuff in it, yeah, but is it a fantasy story? Um, Now you're going to go back to God preserves His word, so that's where I'll stand on that. You know, and if there's any shenanigans going on in there, you realize that the King James Bible is versus a comparison to the Catholic translations, the new versions, has something like 20 something thousand fragments and manuscripts, fragments of scripts, and all of these different pieces that are called the received text. They're all copies of copies of copies of copies of copies of copies of letters of all these things. They have 20,000 things that all say the same deal. Okay. Thousands of things that say the exact same word for word, tittles and jots, all exactly the same. Now, it probably was that they didn't have a version, anything for Jasher, or they didn't have anything for Enoch except what the Roman Catholics had. And the Roman Catholic, the Vaticanus Sinaiticus or something, there is only like a couple hundred copies of that. And that's what all new translations are based off of. So that's what's making the King James Bible is completely different than any other translation. There are some other ones in other languages that use the Textus Receptus, but the main thing is being that. As far as the New Testament, the Old Testament is going to be mostly the same because they're using Hebrew. But the New Testament, written in Greek, you've got the received text, Textus Receptus, which is like Armenian or comes out of like Antioch. And then you've got the Catholic text, Sinaiticus, which comes out of Egypt, was when the translation was, and it's where these writings are from. And if you just look at it biblically, people were first called Christians in Antioch, and Egypt has always been associated with the world, wickedness, and the devil. Always. So there you go. I'm just going to roll with whatever the King James Bible does for a variety of different reasons. But, I own those other books and I've looked at them once and it's like interesting, but I'm not losing anything for not having them. Isaiah, other planets aren't real. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they are. They're lights in the sky. Globe, Earth, and evolution are Jesuit Kabbalah doctrines? Yes. Steven Anderson stuff? I don't know. I don't care about Steven Anderson. John 8:37, removed from Vatican translations. Vatican translations removed many thousands of words and retranslated them to something else. And every new perversion of the Bible needs to continue to change things to keep their copyright up to date every like 20 years or something. So they legally cannot be the word of God, because if they were the word of God, they'd be the same as the Bible, and they can't be the same in order to get a copyright. They have to change it to make money. That's it. If they were the same as the King James Bible, they couldn't tack on their fees and make a copyright money off of it. They can't. And you always know when you're not dealing with the true word of God, when you're reading something that's annotating back to a Bible verse or something like that. If it is not a King James Bible, they always have to denote, this is from the New International Version. This is from the New Living Translation. This is from the ESV. This is from whatever. They always have to denote that. So they give the copyright owner, as though it's a fiction book, guys, as though it's a fiction book. They have to give the copyright and the creative credit to, who is it? Zondervan or something like that. The same guy who runs Black Lives Matter and runs all these other things, he owns the copyright stuff like the NIV and the Book of Satan and all these things. Okay. It's all copyright. So it can't be the word of God if it's this other version. Can't be, because they have to change it. Gospel truth link is what I tried sending you earlier for Romans 7, but it wouldn't go through. Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't pay any mind to it because if I haven't heard about it, and I've been around for almost, 8 years? So 12, it's 2021. At least 7, probably 8. Perusing around on the internet and making my voice known at least since then. If I haven't heard about it, it's probably one of these things like Tenacious D or whatever that guy's name was, where he's got his brand new thing. I got my brand new doctorate. Send me money so I can give you a coffee cup, right? One of them guys. You just don't listen to him. Honestly, you got to give it a rest at a certain point, and you're not going to get punished for doing things in ignorance. It's like, that you're saved and now go off and go do good stuff. You can't keep going back and trying to keep, figuring stuff out. It's like, okay, you've got your good doctrine. Now go and run away, run, go be a moral and good person and do good things. Especially when you're talking about a major doctrinal thing like that. Like no one believes in sinless perfection. Even the people who teach that stuff just do it for like money. Okay. I mean, no one honestly believes that stuff. Just like your charismatic people that are up there all boogly, 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 boo. Boogly, 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 boo. They don't believe that crap either. They do it because it makes people feel good. Okay. And get some money. It doesn't matter. Things don't need to be true for people to enjoy them and get carried away in them. I mean, the reason that masks aren't gone right now in the general public is because people want to wear them. There is no other answer. People want to wear them. and then variety of reasons, but I'm guessing there's a lot of shame there where people feel more comfortable. Yeah. Random guy says dinosaurs don't exist and they're not dragons. Yeah, I heard about that too. Apparently that was one of the things, I bashed Owen Benjamin in a couple of videos, primarily because he had it coming. But despite that, I'll still listen to the guy because he has a lot of really good information and he is a central hub for a lot of other people who have a lot of really good information to send him. And he talks about it. And there are a few things that he has talked about recently that I knew nothing about. And I'm like, huh. And one of them is that I knew all the dinosaur bones are all fake in the museums, right? But the reason that they're getting blood out of them and they're getting DNA and they shouldn't be able to, because they're supposedly 60 million years old, right? Is because what they use to make them and fake them is chicken bones. And that's why when they study them and they get bird DNA out of them, they think that the dinosaurs became birds. It all goes back to the original fraud of them casting dinosaur bones out of ground up chicken bones. And it's like, yeah, that makes sense. I think that there's a lot more to that, but I don't have time to go chase down all of that stuff. As far as are there big dragon-like creatures around? Yeah, there still is today. There's big humans around too. Just nobody is going to talk about them. Or, the Smithsonian Society. What's hilarious about those guys is they swoop down and scoop up any of these old relics and artifacts. And they were created before dinosaurs even existed. It's pretty hilarious. It's like, so what came first? The institute to discover the dinosaurs or the dinosaurs? The institute to discover dinosaurs was around before the discovery of dinosaurs. So that whole thing is nonsense. I look at like anything they teach you in kindergarten is nonsense. Earth doesn't move anywhere, doesn't spin, doesn't rotate. We're not zooming through space. We don't rotate around the sun. That's nonsense. Dinosaurs, probably all nonsense. Okay. It's just, you can go right on down the list of like all the stuff that they told you. And it's all garbage. The magnetic pole reversals and acid rain and The environment. We got to watch out for the environment. There's too many people. There's too many. We need to kill a bunch of people because there's not going to be enough food for everybody. And it's like, it's all nonsense. All of it. It's all just psyop mind game stuff to control people. It's really sad. But that's too red pill for today. We don't want to talk about all that stuff going into Christmas. Yeah. Yeah, that's the important thing, is going out and getting your own house in order. As far as like doctrine goes, I mean, look at the madness that's going on in the world right now. Is like arguing over Adam's belly button and whether or not you should eat meat and all this stuff. It's like, who has time for that? I mean, whatever, do what you want to do. There's no moral anything about whether or not you choose to eat meat or not, or whether or not you choose to give out candy on Halloween. It's not a moral thing, right? Who cares? You got your commandments. Your commandments are to love God above everybody else and love your neighbor as you love yourself. If it doesn't fall into that category, it'd be called an ordinance, and you can do with it what you will. Right. Right. Oh, going on about mugs. Yeah, I just do that to make fun of the guy. That's it. Okay. I don't care if the guy has mugs or not. I don't really care. It's just, I find it comical. All right. I find that whole idea comical. When he's got like 1,000 subscribers or 500, and he's already got his t-shirts, and it's like, he's got the great new thing. Yeah, the great new thing. So anyways, that's what we have for Colossians 2. I don't know if we have any last minute questions. I've been going for an hour, so I'm good. I'm good. I'm good to go get off and go play a video game and go to hell. Probably make some chicken. I think I'm kind of hungry. Yeah. I did kind of want to talk about guitars, but I think it's a little late for that. Is smoking cigs a concession or a sin? Why would it be a sin? I mean, do you make everything a sin? Where does it talk about that in the Bible? I don't have merchandise. Well, I'm making merchandise of you. I don't know. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having logos and having cups and having t-shirts. I'm nowhere near popular enough to have a t-shirt. Right? I don't have a stream like a podcast or something. If I had a podcast, sure, I'd have a t-shirt. Why not? That's the only way that people make money on the internet when they're doing their time doing stuff. Like Mike Hoggard. I'm sure he's got a t-shirt and a cup. There's nothing wrong with doing that. There's nothing wrong with having a t-shirt. It's just kind of funny when you don't have any subs and you've got a cup with your name on it and your logo. I don't know. If I was on I haven't done anything on JPS in a while, but that's like a legit corp. So if I did that, that would be because it's a tax write-off. It's a tax write-off. Play a video game and go to hell. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Denlinger and his, whatever. If it makes him, his thing is, if it makes him happy to be that way, then fine. But, the problem comes in if it interferes with other people's walk with God, and it does. And then, yeah, I'm going to give flack for it. He was somewhat right about one of his videos that he came out with recently about it being a worldwide judgment from God, the whole COVID thing. And, I agree in the sense that it's a grand delusion. Okay. But it's not like pestilence and plague that God sent as a judgment. That's not at all what it is. Because their Christians are still here. We haven't been raptured out yet. But it is God allowing people to be deceived, certainly. And, that was an interesting aspect. But then he was like, then he went into how China could start taking over the United States with like soldiers. And then I'm like, oh, okay, well, you're a nutcase now. So, That was my 30 seconds of listening to Denlinger before cringing is about all I can take. People go to not thou upon wine, never to sip beer. Well, the beer and the wine thing and the cigarette thing, all that's talked about in the Bible as you're not supposed to overindulge or whatever. I mean, the biggest problem with like drugs and alcohol and things like that is loosening of inhibitions and doing things that you wouldn't normally do that you're not making a conscious choice of, really. And that's what leads to the problem. I mean, the Bible even tells you, like, if you have a stomach ache, to drink booze. So we're going to go with that. And again, it's if people feel that way, they can do that. Just don't tell me about it. Okay. Just like Christmas. You don't want to celebrate Christmas? You don't want to have a Christmas tree? Fine, don't tell me about it. I don't have a Christmas tree, and I don't really care to get one because I just don't, it's not like I'm anti-tree, but I certainly could. If I didn't want a Christmas tree in my house, I could go back to old Jeremiah and I go, see, look right here. It says no fir tree, and I can't drag it in from the forest, and I can't nail it to my living room floor, which is verbatim what it says in that verse. Don't grab a fir tree like the heathen do, deck it up with gold, drag it into your house, and nail it to the floor. What else could it be? It's a Christmas tree. Okay. And the Bible forbids it, but it also says, don't worry about other people who have a tree because the tree can't hurt you. And again, we're talking about the Old Testament. So if I wanted to make a big stink about not having a tree because they are a pain in the butt, okay, they make a big mess everywhere and the cat gets into them and the dog's going to be whacking the thing, it's a pain. I don't have any room for one, right? So I could say, oh, the Bible says we can't have one, right? Well, I would be a liar. Okay. But I could certainly do that because I know the Bible well enough. I know the Bible well enough to be a perfectly good liar, right? But no, I just I don't care to have one to go out of my way. It's kind of nice, but at the other token, it's a lot of work and it's a lot of mess, and I don't have the room for it. I'm not anti-tree. We have lights up. Good enough. Good enough. So, that's what I've got for today. It's good talking to everybody. Isaiah, critical mass. Yeah, that's what we have. Inevitably every year it comes out, where someone's got a thing about, oh, you shouldn't celebrate Christmas and do this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. That's about, I'm not going to argue with you. Just be like, that's interesting. So what do you think of Colossians 2? And they won't know because people only know enough Bible to throw it in people's faces, or to defend themselves from persecution, like, oh, judge not, Matthew 24 or whatever, Matthew 15, 14. That's about as much Bible as people know. They know enough to throw it in people's faces and enough to defend themselves. That's it. Yeah, don't worry about it. You just do you. You let them other people out there wear their masks and do their thing, and you do your thing. So yeah. There we have it. Oh, 13 people. I'm up to 2 dislikes. I got 2 haters. All right. Good seeing you too, Critical Mass. I will be around a little bit. I do want to have a fun stream where I just get to talk about like hobbies and stuff and see what everybody else is doing out there where we don't have much else going on. And I'll be doing that at some point. Like I said, it's probably a pretty good chance that I might be doing some real estate work, and if not that, maybe something else. So I don't know how much longer we're going to be around to do these things, but or how often. At least I know we haven't seen Frank. I don't know if anyone heard of Frank's still doing okay. I'll send him a message here after I get done with this because he hasn't done a stream in a couple of weeks that I've seen. So that's sad because usually I can get whatever is on my chest off on his side, and then I don't have to host anything or do anything. It's great. So yeah, that's what's going on. That's what we'll be doing. And that's all I've got with that. So everyone, take care, and God bless. And don't let people kick you around when it comes to, what food you should eat and all these ordinances that the Jews are going on with. Don't let anyone kick you around about losing your salvation or you got to be sinlessly perfect. I mean, that is the most idiotic. That's even dumber than saying there is no God. I'll just put it that way. As many of other things, what we touched on the flat earth thing, and I'm just going to tell you guys. All right. Just look into that stuff. Look into all those things that, you're taught in kindergarten before your mind was old enough to really discern and have good judgment. And people had to tell you, that your socks didn't match and they had to make sure you wore your coat outside. If you were that, people are trying to feed you factual information when you're that age. You have to look at those things that you were told and decide whether or not those are so. And a lot of people got extra time when they're sitting on the inside. The least you could do is see whether or not the COVID thing is a hoax, or if dinosaurs existed, or if we're living on a spinning ball, or a lot of these different things. What happened in the Spanish flu? There's a lot of things, and it's like, and don't get all red pilled and down and out, because we're look. You can look at the bright side and the positive things. If you understand what's going on, what's going on. God's got your back. Look for opportunities. It's easy to get very stressed out. We're in a particularly stressful situation, sort of between work and income here between me and my wife. And, God's always got our back. And as long as I'm doing what I think God wants me to do, I'm going to be okay. And I look at the amount of opportunity that's going to be coming with all the people just willy-nilly giving up their businesses, right? For the mask policy, for a little bit of government handouts, all these people doing this. It's like, imagine the opportunities. And for people who don't want to blame everybody for their problems, the opportunities for us are amazing. Okay. Amazing. And it's going to be a, what do they call that when that happens? Renaissance. I think it's a renaissance where you're going to have the people who want to think for themselves and have responsibility and do moral things and behave right. And then you're going to have all the zombies who want to wear their mask and huff and puff and die of bacterial pneumonia. And I am very much looking forward to this stuff. So that's about what I got. I closed out my screen that actually has my chat up. So I don't know if anybody is saying anything else. I got, God bless. And we're going to be out of here. Have a Merry Christmas if I'm not back up since then. And yeah.